Well, you guys, so I got this recorder specifically for dumb stories in the middle of the night. So right now it's 2:55 a.m. Why am I not in bed? Well, because usually I have YouTube blocked, but today I unblocked it because I thought I had willpower, and that was 4 hours ago, okay? Now, in my defense, my turtle, well, he's fine, but he's kind of freaking me out. He's fine, but he, uh, he really, really, really liked his shrimp that he got for Seafood Sunday, and I think he was very excited about it. So, if you've seen his dating profile, you know. So anyway, so me, they don't teach you, when you have, boys in their early teens, it can be a learning curve as a parent. Okay, so anyway, so that was that. Well, anyway, so what I was thinking about was my dumb story. Okay, so listen. So one time, I, well, okay, so this is how my brain was thinking and ended up there, right? So, my therapist dropped me again. This always happens. I work with somebody, and then at some point, they decide that it would be a disservice to continue working with me. They give me no choices at all, and there's never a termination session, okay? This has happened over and over, and people are like, well, but is it really every time? And I look back at like the individual therapeutic relationships, and I'm like, yeah, pretty much. Like, I don't get termination sessions, right? Not a thing that seems to happen. Like, I don't remember ever having one. Except with, ironically, providers who are male, which is a little bit strange, but I also feel like, well, okay, so there's men who are just total assholes, right? Mansplaining, whatever. But I feel like for example, I used to have like an OBGYN who was, or what was he? He was a gynecologist or something, but he was a guy, okay? But I felt more comfortable with him, ironically, because I grew up in religion where, like, it was different. But to me, a guy who is not an asshole, who's working in a job such as gynecology, is much less likely to get complacent about being empathetic to other people. So, for example, a woman is more likely to feel like she understands because she's a woman, so she doesn't have to go to the ends of the earth to be understanding and compassionate because, well, she's a woman too. So I can't, like, there's no risk that, like she can ever be called out for, like, discrimination or whatever, right? And, like, in my experience, like, one time, years ago, I was in a hospital. Not a bad one. This was actually a good, helpful hospital, right? And, you know, like, there was a conversation that, like, was kind of taking place where I was there, nursing staff was there, probably technically should have been somewhere else, but, like, just the way it was going down, it just was what it was. And so there was a female patient who desperately needed her birth control medication because otherwise she was going to get cramps. And the nurse was male, and he was going way above and beyond what an average female would go through, because a female generally is going to, well, not often, will be like, well, I get cramps too because I'm female, so I don't need to worry. And this is ignoring, I guess, transgender is a real thing. Okay, so I don't want to be mean about that, but, like, that is a real thing. But generally, people who are identified female at birth, um, are less likely to be like, oh my gosh, I have to take this very seriously because I know that I don't understand. And to me, it's easier to work with people who know they don't understand than it is to work with people who think they do understand. So then I was thinking, well, because my last therapist dropped me, I had a lot of concerns about the new therapy. Sorry that you can hear the banging. It's because the cat found something that he's not allowed to have. Oh, is it because you're a little toy kitten? A little toy got wrapped up in a bag. See who else is. Okay. Okay. She's fine. But, okay, so like, the therapist dropped me, which was an issue. And then there was apparently a handoff, which I feel extremely uncomfortable about because the problem is during the handoff, the therapist is not going to want to be like, oh yeah, I randomly dropped Phoebe when she knew this was really, but she's not going to want to make herself look bad. So she has to make somebody look bad. So she's going to be like, oh yeah, Phoebe, she has a million issues. And so that's why she's upset. It's not that I'm a terrible therapist, okay? Dropping her out of absolute total nowhere with zero warning. Not even telling me that she didn't think I was getting better until she was dropping me because I was, okay. So I feel really uncomfortable about the handoff. I also feel really uncomfortable because she, like, basically, I'm frequently encouraged to not do the reassurance seeking. So, I don't seek reassurance. I don't say to the person, boy, it's really going to hurt me if you leave me. Now, at the very beginning, I did because I was extremely hesitant to return to therapy because my therapist before her had dropped me, and the therapist before her had dropped me in like the worst way possible. And before that, I was in the hospital. Okay, so basically, this seems to be how it goes. And so I was really nervous about even starting therapy. Almost canceled the whole thing because I'm like, it's not fine. But the way this is going to end is when you randomly out of nowhere drop me because you thought I wasn't getting better, or at least not fat, or whatever. And you're going to claim that this is supposed to be in my best interest, like I called it, okay? And then it happened. So, first of all, I don't like that there was a handoff. I don't like that she probably had to say shitty things about me to make herself look better. And I also don't feel happy that I'm effectively being punished for not reassurance seeking. Now, mind you, after she dropped me, I did not um try to make her not drop me, okay? Because this is another thing that I think is significant. It's not like I'm here begging her not to leave. I did say, you can do this, but it's not okay for you to tell me that you're doing this because it's in my best interest. You're doing this for liability and you're hurting me. But I'm not going to try to stop the person, okay? Because I'm sure whatever went down in the notes was strange. I've been through this before, okay? So that's point two. Then point three, I don't love that she picked out the next person because clearly I misjudged Amber, okay? I thought I could, I mean, we'd worked together for a long time. She seemed like somebody I could trust, okay? Clearly I was wrong. But but anyway, I don't love that she picked out the next person. And then I was thinking, well, what therapists have I worked with who did not then go on to drop me? And it's always been guys, even guys who were, well, generally they're like med prescribers, I guess, but female med prescribers also drop me, okay? So, because this lady Karen did that. So, the only people who seem to, like, there does definitely seem to be a gender difference, which is weird. Um, but anyway, I'm like, well, the therapist I'm working with right now, I've met her like once. She seems lovely, but I do have a million suspicions just based on the fact that, like, there was a handoff, and I guess they know each other. They have the same supervisor who apparently signed off on this. Probably also female, I don't know. And anyway, so I was just thinking, God made a whole bunch of different genders because you really need all of them, okay? And so there are a lot of settings. Some places they don't like the LGBTQ, and then on trauma units it's no cisgender males, and like the things you really need people of all stripes, right? So I was thinking about that sometimes men are absolute total assholes, Um, and then there are times when they are just severely underappreciated, like as though one person was traumatized by a male, so then all males are evil. Well, guess what? I was in a cult. I wasn't really allowed to be around a lot of males because the idea was everybody was heterosexual, and if you're alone in the room with somebody, you will immediately be fucking them if you are of opposite gender. Which is ridiculous, but it also means I was around fewer manipulative men than I was around manipulative women, and some of the women were very bad. And I was thinking about, like, funny stories where, anyway, but in my experience, things go better when you've got everybody from all kinds of genders who recognize not understanding everything about each other and are compassionate and because honestly because they understand that they're not like the other person. So I was like, man, I wonder if I could get like you know a male therapist, which I feel bad because the current therapist seems fine, and I think she did probably put in a lot of work, so maybe it'll work out and be fine. But then I was like, I don't like the Amber picture, you know what I mean? But anyway, we'll see how that goes. But anyway, that reminded me of my funny story, okay? And then I always remember these stupid funny stories late at night, and then I can't sleep, so I have no way to vent my funny story. So listen, this is what happened, okay? So I order a whole bunch of furniture. Well, it was a bookcase, but it was like an extremely large bookcase. I like to read, okay? So I ordered this massive fucking bookcase from IKEA. And unfortunately, I didn't have money after ordering the bookcase to get like um delivery like full in service. Like they could deliver it, but they weren't going to be able to come up to my apartment. Now I was grossly underestimated. I wasn't really allowed to play with blocks and stuff as a kid. I mostly sat around staring off into the void. So spatial intelligence isn't really my thing. You know what I mean? I wasn't moving things around in space, right? I was just imagining things in my brain because moving and making sound and stuff was all scary. You could randomly be attacked. Like, there genuinely was a very high probability that would happen. So, um, at a very young age, I learned to just sit there and stare off and imagine inside of my head. And then, anyway, I didn't know how big the bookcase was going to be. I don't think that's because I'm female. I think that's because I wasn't allowed to really move objects in space growing up. Or maybe it's even just like a genetic thing. I don't know. But anyway, so the bookcase was going to be huge, okay? Came in 11 pieces, okay? So that tells you. Well, anyway, I also didn't really have a lot of stuff, like in terms of like a good dolly, but I had a regular dolly. No, I had a dolly. It was bungee cords. I only had the one bungee cord. So I'm down there waiting for the package. Package gets delivered. Turns out to be 11 packages. I'm like, oh man. And so the guy comes in. I don't know where he was from. Him and his companion. The companion was like an older guy. This guy was like, I don't know, late 30s or something, okay? He's one of those, those idiots who are on YouTube trying to learn to sit in a chair and drink from a water bottle like an alpha male, and they just end up imitating lower forms of primates. That's exactly what this idiot was doing. Okay? He's strutting his stuff. I don't know. I feel bad speculating a country, but I feel like he was probably Russian. But I'm not saying that Russian guys are all like that because I have definitely met very nice Russian guys. He just happened to, at the same time, be Russian or something Eastern European and also an asshole. Not that that's the reason he was an asshole. He turned, okay, correlation, not causation. Just like it just happened to be both in those categories. So anyway, so this dude, he's strutting around. He's a big, tough guy. I mean, he carries furniture, so he was in good shape, okay? Anyway, so he's like, oh, you've just got a dolly and one bungee cord. I'm like, yeah. And so he's all puffed, man. I can't do justice over a voice recorder, but, he like machismally leans on the wall. He looks over at his partner and dramatically, as though he's like in a movie, okay? He says in his first language, which he spoke perfect English, so what the. Anyway, he says something along the lines of, get your things. We have to help this woman. Now, I don't know what he said, okay? He probably said, I'm horny as fuck. Can you just help me out so I can look like an alpha male while speaking Russian, okay? But anyway, I'm pretty good at interpreting what people are saying in other languages without. Anyway, so um, so they help me carry the packages. Now my thing is, at this point, I pretty much know that I'm being sexually harassed, but at the same time, I need my shit carried upstairs, okay? And so look, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna have to make a trade-off. Like, yeah, it is gonna suck carrying 11 massive boxes with a dolly and one bungee cord to the third floor. Not in the best physical condition. So anyway, so he helped me carry all the stuff, okay? So then he's sitting there on top of the boxes in my apartment, all alpha male, drinking his alpha male water bottle, and he's like, well, it's okay, 'cause, that's how you meet people. And I'm like, okay, yeah, we're not. And then he wants to come back and help me assemble the furniture for free. And I'm like, this is not free. You can't afford me, boy. And so anyway, so he wants to help out with the furniture. I'm like, yeah, no, it's not happening. But I didn't say that because I needed him to carry my shit. And at this point, he's in my apartment, right? So anyway, he's finally gonna leave, and he's all super He-Man. He's like, well, you have my number. I'm expecting a call from you. And okay, so part of what got me thinking about this was the verb expect. Remember when expecting something used to mean I think it's going to rain tomorrow, but I'm not sure. And now expect is used in all these professional contexts and apparently by idiots who want to use the verb expect as though they really don't like surprises. Like if it's expected that you're going to come to the work meeting, it's almost like they're saying it's mandatory, but they think you'll think you're coming voluntarily if they use the word expect. So, anyway, he's super alpha, He-Man, crazy guy, like Barnabas the plant, okay? Not Barnabas, my nephew, who I hope is doing fine. But anyway, so he's strutting around, okay? And so he's leaving the house, and he's all alpha mailing it out the door. He's like, I'm expecting a call from you. Now, Grandpa, the older guy, wasn't really talking very much. I'm pretty sure he also spoke English. He's just like, oh, fuck my life. Why am I working with this guy? Anyway, so they leave, okay? Well, he forgot the 11th piece, which was a very small piece. So I have to text him at his stupid number. I'm like, dude, you forgot piece number 11. And he's like, oh, the universe wanted me to bring it back to you. And I'm like, I want you to bring it back to me, moron. Okay, I wasn't born yesterday, obviously. Anyway, so he comes back, he brings the piece, and he's expecting a call. Listen, I did not call the man, okay? Honestly, I don't remember if I blocked his number, but I was like, that was fucked. Well, anyway, so at the end of the day, okay, fortunately, he had Grandpa there or whatever with him, so he wasn't able to do anything bad. I've been in enough compromising situations in my life that I had pretty much figured out that he wasn't actually all that altruistic. Everything worked out, it's okay when you look younger than you are, but you actually have hard-earned life wisdom. The only drawback, really, because I did get my shit carried to the third floor for free. Only drawback, really, aside from minor creepy vibes, is the fact that I now am pretty sure that even if I ever had money, I probably can't order from IKEA anymore. So if you're IKEA, I don't know, I feel bad. I mean, I don't know, maybe, well, you're not going to be able to look me up. But anyway, and don't be mean to all the Russian guys. Some Russian guys are great, okay, but maybe just like send out an all staff email, like whatever you do, don't tell your female clients that you'll assemble their stuff for free while strutting around like a demented piece of. Anyway, so yeah, that was my funny story, which was kicked off by, I really hate all female environments. This is one of those where I would need to draw a diagram, but basically, okay, say, let's imagine a world where you've got two genders, okay? And let's say there's roughly the same number of people in each gender. Now, this is not a real story because you've got non-binary people, you've got intersex people, you've got like transgender people. You've got people who are one gender in some ways and others in other ways. You've got gender fluid people, and you've got all kinds of things that I've never even heard of, because honestly, my life has been, I don't use the word sheltered because it wasn't sheltered. It was just a different type of trauma, a normal trauma. And yeah, I wasn't really allowed to learn about different gender options, okay? Fortunately, I was born female and I still identify as female, which being cisgender is easier than having, than being trans. Nobody chooses to be trans. They just literally, that's what they are. So me, I got my white privilege. I got cisgender. So female can be iffy, but as long, anyway, so yeah, but let's imagine a world. You've got population A, you've got population B. And usually I'd be drawing two, like, bars, but I can't do that right now, okay? And so I want to hire the top 10% of applicants for my job. Say I'm hiring people for a psychiatric unit, let's say. And I'm going to hire the top 10% of people. Well, I'm probably going to hire the top 10% of population A and the top 10% of population B. But then let's say that for whatever reason, okay, and I've seen this go both ways. Trauma units, they tend to eliminate the males. A lot of religious situations, they definitely believe in two genders, and the females are not allowed to have any kind of leadership positions, so they attract a whole bunch of people who enjoy when the number one thing they put on their resumes is their genitalia, which is a whole strange, not even representative sample of the male population, but okay. But anyway, say for whatever reason I'm going to arbitrarily remove population B, okay? Well, guess what I have to do now? Because I still need the same number of employees. So now I have to hire the top 20% of population A. So 50% of the people working at my establishment are there only because I eliminated the more qualified applicants from population B. And I have seen this, I've worked in situations like this. It never goes well. And part of it is because you really need the interplay between all the genders that exist. Even if, I don't know about religion, I'm just saying evolution, whatever. There's a million genders and it definitely seems like there is supposed to be. You know what I mean? Um, so yeah, you need gender diversity. That's what that's about. So, and then honestly, pet peeve, okay? Like you take the idiot guy from IKEA, okay? And then you think about your average trauma unit. Like one time I was at this really messed up place in Worcester, and I'm on the trauma unit. So guess what? Everybody has to be female. All the staff are female. All the patients are female. I mean, people were literally changing their pronouns just to get the fuck off of the female unit, okay? It was that bad, okay? And so anyway, we're there on the estrogen unit, hating our lives. We were already depressed. Now we're locked in the mental farm from hell, okay? And anyway, I just felt like staff wasn't super qualified. But then I said, like, okay, is there a separate trauma unit for men? And like I asked the staff member this, and they're like, oh, no, 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 no. Men go to the substance unit. Well, that makes sense because men literally do that, right? Like women are pathologized for being overly emotional, which is right, and men are expected to be not emotional at all. And so in trauma units, like usually you at least get mixed gender staff, but they generally eliminate these cisgender males. And what does that do? It reinforces the narrative that if you are male, you are the aggressor. You are not the victim. So, do they get any help for their childhood trauma? No. My little brother, for example, I worry about him every single day. Is he ever going to get help? Probably not. Okay. And, and then they're being told, like, well, you're the aggressor, right? So, what are they going to do instead of getting instead of getting help, right? And maybe Women get diagnosed with a lot of really strange shit. You get told you have a personality disorder because you're too sad all the time. Like, bizarro crap happens, okay? But at the same time, as much as women are damaged by the mental health system, men are usually outside of the mental health system. So one time I was in the hospital for like over a year, okay? Everybody else was there for 3 to 5 days on average. So some people stayed a few months. I was the longest person in the history of the hospital because I was not fine, okay? This one guy, he was kind of an older dude. He was hilarious. He was like a grandfather. I guess he had a drinking problem, okay? And his line was, I come to the hospital 10 times a year. And honestly, in my experience there, that was pretty much how often he would come. And at first, and this is why don't drink alcohol. It's just like all the other drugs. Don't do it. It's worse than marijuana. Don't do it. Because he came in and at first he's hilarious. Okay, he's the grandpa, all American grandpa guy, right? And he just, every time he came, he was a little bit weaker, a little bit weaker. He lost a ton of weight. He lost all his muscle mass. And then he stopped coming. So, I can only assume what happened to him. So, anyway, but he clearly had an out of control drinking problem. That's the thing. And one time, we're in this wine. Now, the hospital I was at the time had the worst system for dietary you've ever imagined in your life, because instead of just normal places, they're like, this is what's for dinner, okay? If you're on a special meal plan, guess what? You got this alternative meal, but you're not going to choose what it is, okay? This thing, every individual had to choose all three of their meals, including sides, including beverages, including do you want sugar in your coffee, everything for all three meals. So you've got the menu, my cat's here, you've got the menu, and everybody has to stand in the longest line ever because, they would not allow a paper menu. Apparently a paper menu, I don't know, they got like triggered by the word paper menu. Like I would ask to just look at a paper menu and they were so afraid that I would fill out the paper menu that they would freak out and just be like, why do you need a paper menu? You know you can't fill out a paper menu. And I think it was supposed to be a COVID thing, but if you fax it, you're not going to get COVID. So I don't know. Anyway, so it's no paper menus, which means everybody's at a different level of functioning. And every single day at about 2 o'clock, the whole unit of 30 people had to line up and verbally articulate to this lady exactly what they wanted to eat the next day. So this was taking hours out of everybody's day. Now, technically, one option was just don't do this and they'll bring you the same meal the next day, but they will be very pissed at you about it if they wanted you to stand in the line and tell them what you wanted the next day, as though there's that many options. There's not. You got grilled cheese, you got brisket. It wasn't that interesting, okay? Anyway, so we're in the line. It's the longest line ever. And so it's me, it's the alcoholic grandpa, and the person before him was a sweet, gentle, elderly woman. I mean, elderly, okay? Like, I don't know. I mean, she was struggling. But, we'll all, hopefully get there, okay? So anyway, so we're standing in the line and the guy is like, oh yeah, when I was 26, my grandfather died, and he's like telling a story. And the kind of bleeding heart ahead of him is like, oh, too soon. And the alcoholic grandpa gets angry. He's like, not angry, angry, but just like really defensive. He's like, what? No, I was 26. My grandfather died. That's life. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I just figured out why he has an out of control drinking problem. Anytime something bad happens, his response is, well, that's life. He's not able to feel emotions. And you can't tell me this only happened because of other men, okay? Because, like, what's her name? Brene Brown in the extremely overplayed video on vulnerability and whatever shame and whatever. It was great the first 100 times. If she's listening, it was kind of like the emotional hygiene, also great the first 100 times. But anyway, so yeah, so it's like, okay, so that was his, his thing, and he's not saying like, oh yeah, I have a drinking problem because I'm not allowed to be emotional about anything, or But to me, it's like, okay, now I know why you're here. And this did seem to be a pretty common thing, where I mean, men and women were both coming in and out. Um, but there are things that are specifically really hard for men. Like if their female partner leaves them, she takes the kids almost every time. They can lose their entire families. There are things that can happen to men that are horrible, and I feel like it doesn't mean that it's harder to be a man. That is not what I'm saying. I'm not saying that, like, the Me Too movement was misguided. It wasn't. Okay, there are things that are very difficult about being female. I have been to doctors while female, and people don't believe me that I'm in pain, or they think whatever, whatever. Okay, so I'm not saying that like men are the victim either. I don't think any gender, well, people are evil if you're not either male or female. If you're trans or whatever or something else, people will generally be an asshole to you. So I'm not saying, I mean, I don't know. I feel like the idea that like, well, nobody's allowed to be a victim. Like, really? What if everyone's consistently screwing you? But anyway, that aside, okay, because people can be mean from any gender, people can be nice from any gender, people can be an oppressor or a victim of any gender. But I think one thing that is specifically unique to guys is that they can't go on the trauma unit. They can't acknowledge that they have trauma. And yeah, maybe some of this is coming from other guys, but who's the people who made the rule no men on the trauma unit? Because the people who seem to be really in favor of this were females or guys who were worried about hurting females. It's not like, you know, it's not like guys can't be traumatized, and like just having a little brother, anybody with like a cisgender male in their life, especially my little brother is so engrossed in toxic masculinity, okay, but he's obviously got trauma. I witnessed it happening to him when he was too young to remember, okay, so I know what happened to him, and there's no way he's ever going to get help for a lot of reasons, but a lot of it is like, if you're forced to embrace toxic masculinity, you're not going to get help. Does that make it okay to commit DV, which my brother doesn't do, okay? But no, it doesn't, okay? But what are men supposed to do if they are chronically the aggressor? They're always going to be seen as the aggressor, really, at least right now, okay? We can change that, but it's not changed yet. So, if the guys are expected to be the aggressor, they can't work on their trauma, they can't acknowledge emotions, and then they beat the absolute ever living shit out of their female partner. Is that okay? No. But is that something that we as society could make changes to prevent? Not as in all across the board, but it would be less likely to be happening, right? If we normalized being a good and sensitive man. So I think that is the thing that like because guys they are up against a lot because a lot of men going before them have done horrible things. That is true. Okay, now me, I'm Caucasian, so I know what it's like to be a protected class. I know what it's like to be the oppressive class. Okay, and people who have gone before me have done horrible things while Caucasian and have gotten away with it because they were Caucasian. Does that make me a bad person? No, it doesn't. And I think this is the exact same thing that goes on with gender, where it's like there are men who go way above and beyond choosing to be good humans, choosing not to, you know, take male privilege and use it for their own advantage against other people. There's people who have like basically male privilege who use that to help me. Men have done that for me. There have been men who were male providers who, not like provider like house provider, like provider as in healthcare providers who have gone out of their way to help me. And maybe they were privileged because they were a man, but they used that to get degrees in helping people and they helped me. So anyway, all that to say, I was thinking um maybe I should look into trying to get a male therapist, not just because like, you know, I mean, the therapist said that now seems okay, but just, I don't know. I mean, I guess they could technically drop you, but I feel like if you get one that's not an asshole, which any guy going into mental health probably is going to be fine because, I mean, if you're a guy and you're actually going into something like that, I mean, you obviously have to cross the barriers of like, but guys don't have any emotions. And you're like, but I do. It's like male nurses. Like, everybody thinks they're effeminate because they're a male nurse. Well, I mean, sometimes they are, but sometimes they're not. They're just guys who are nurses who are just like the least sexist guys around because, they just choose to be sensitive in a world where that's not encouraged by anybody, including the females who are apparently traumatized by the males who, I mean, yeah, I got the shit beaten out of me. I've been through assault on multiple occasions. None of that's fun, but it's not like women are, you know, across the board little, sweet people all the time. I mean, I would say the women in my life have hurt me a lot more than the men in my life. So, anyway, all I have to say, maybe, I don't know, maybe I should find a guy because, not like as in like a, not as in like a romantic, like find a man, but just because, oh my god, oh my god, one time I was in like a PT1 and the guy was like, oh my god, trying to like, I don't know. And I'm like, dude, this is a professional relationship. He's like, would you date a guy like me? And like inside, I'm screaming, no. And I'm like, well, I don't know. Maybe if we met under different circumstances, other than me in the back of your fucking medical transit, what do you think I am right now? Vulnerable. That's why. So I'm not. People can be evil, but so can females. So anyway, I don't have a problem with guys generally. I do feel like they might be less likely to do things that are harmful because, well, not generally. But if you find a nice person that's male, that's working in mental health, probably less likely than a kind of equivalent female to do some of the hurtful things that have been mentioned. So, and I mean, worked with, I mean, oh man, I've had some idiot male providers too, but not all of them. And with the med prescriber thing, because I had a male med prescriber, I didn't know I could get a different one, okay? I thought that was my med prescriber. I didn't know you could change. So anyway, he said he was leaving the practice. Well, I think he was surprised how well I took that news because it's different. If I never really liked the person, then the fact that they're leaving is fine. You know what I mean? It's more like if I actually did really want the person there and I just didn't do the reassurance seeking and that's why they didn't know that, then that's different. But anyway, so I had a doctor, Dr. V, who left the practice, and so then I was on the waiting list, and I was like, yeah, I'd prefer a male. Well, guess what? My new male provider seems lovely. So anyway, maybe I'm just more relaxed around guys. Maybe it's that because I don't know, women can be. I think guys can be manipulative. I don't know. Some of it, I don't know how gender works honestly, but yeah, I guess that's the point. I don't know how gender works. I definitely think of myself as female. I watched a video by Forrest Valkai, the renegade science teacher, but I guess he took it down. It was a video that he put up, but then he took down, but then I think he remade with new sources and put up, but the new version is like an hour and a half long. But so I didn't watch the new version, but the old one was like Sex and Sensibility, um, or something like that. But anyway, the point was, so me personally, I grew up being told that men and women were innately different. There were two genders. You know which gender you are at birth. Um, and yeah, then you like this one person apparently was trying to raise her daughter to be like a boy, so she gave her daughter like cars. And so the daughter put the cars together to make a little car family, and that was all it took for the mom to be like, well, it's absolutely impossible to socialize any female ever to be like a boy because no boy ever would, and it's like your sample size is one, Why can't boys be sent? I mean, so many. Anyway, but we were taught men and women were innately different, and like this was just commonly talked about. Like, men don't mind messy houses, women do. Like everything was just like, that's just men and women. And it was sexist as everything. It was ridiculous. But I mean, religious guys generally I would avoid. To be honest, at least if they're in one of the more like male dominant religions, like the women are made in the image of men and men are made in the image of God, and I'm like, fuck you. Anyway, but yeah, guys who aren't involved in that usually very nice, but well, much nicer than. Anyway, so anyway, forced out. So okay. So then after I got out of toxic religion, I was like, well, gender's just socialized, okay? It's your role in reproduction, and other than that, it's just like women historically were tending to children, so they were less likely to be out fighting in battle, and then countries and civilizations that are very war centered then value the men over the women, socialize people differently. Those cultures tend to take over because they are warmongering. And so we end up in a male dominated society. Okay. So, but then according to Forrest Alcott, it's not as black and white as any of that because basically your brain, according to the original video, okay, because I don't have 90 minutes to do anything but make a podcast. So according to him, they did a whole bunch of MRIs of like men's men's brains and women's brains, and they mostly look the same except there's like three specific places that are different. Okay, and so they do a whole bunch of cisgender males, they do a whole bunch of cisgender females, right? But then they do transgender people, and the brain of the transgender person did not match their genitalia. It matched the person's expressed gender. The person is saying, no, I'm not a man, I'm a woman. And they did the fucking MRI and they're like, oh shit, you are a woman. Well, why did it take an MRI? You could have just listened to her. And they also figured this out, like, because there's three parts of the brain. Some people have male in one section, female in another section. That's why there's non-binary people. And it probably isn't quite as simple as that because it's an MRI, okay? It's not like, you know, a summary of the entirety of your being, okay? So can people be so, I don't know. But I mean, there's no reason transgender people would even exist if everything were socialized, right? Because you could just behave like, yep. So there's got to be something innate to it. And then they found out that it is actually, they did the MRI. So they're like, oh shit, you've been saying you're XYZ gender because your brain is that gender. And it's like, well, yeah, your brain is like the most important of all of your organs, okay? That's really the one that's kind of got your soul kind of involved, okay? So, I mean, you can do a heart transplant. Can you do a brain transplant? You cannot, okay? So yeah, that's where your identity's at. So clearly, anyway, so I don't know how I got off on that, but anyway, so transgender. I found out that's a real thing, okay, because I didn't know that. I grew up in a cult, okay, so I do tend to just automatically use male pronouns for everybody. I really struggle remembering to use they, them. I try so hard. And then I'm trying to have a conversation but like I'm trying so hard to use the correct pronouns that like every time I hit a pronoun, my brain has to stop, even if it's like you, because that's not gendered. But my brain is like, am I using the right gender right now? And it's harder to talk to the person because I'm like speaking basically a second language at that point. I'm working on it. I'm looking for opportunities to practice. If you use they, them pronouns and you don't mind me messing up once in a while, then just hang out with me and maybe I'll get better about using they, them pronouns. And then you'll be like, well, explain something I did today. And I'll be like, oh yeah, they went down the, because like in my brain, they, them isn't necessarily plural. But if it's not plural, it would be for an entity that we don't know who it is. So ask your doctor if they can prescribe blah, 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 blah. We use that all the time for singular, but it's because we don't know who your doctor is. So trying to use they, them, it's not about the plural to me. it's about using they, them for an individual when I do know who the individual is. There's no question there. But there's no reason that can't change. Because pronouns don't usually change, but they can. Because we don't use thou, thee, and thy anymore, right? So, working on it. But again, I don't know how gender works. I'm trying to figure it out, same as everybody else. I'm genuinely privileged that I've never had to deal with gender, what's it called, dysphoria or something. Because yeah, apparently that shit is pretty much just because of biology. This is, like you actually empirically prove that this is a real thing, and then, you know, and then people still don't believe them, and I don't know why not. Anyway, it's getting along. I don't understand how gender works, but I also think that men can get a bad, sometimes unfair treatment. But the idiot from IKEA, like, yeah, I still can't order from IKEA, okay? I'm sorry. But what if I got the same idiot? And he's like, oh man, you wouldn't believe it. I was expecting you to call. And I'll be, oh yeah, you were surprised, weren't you? He wasn't surprised, he's pissed. Who? The verb expect, I swear, 25 years ago, that's not what it meant. It just meant I'm expecting this to happen. But I have no emotional response if it doesn't. Anyway, and then one thing leads to another, and next thing you know, I can't order IKEA. So, okay, wish me luck. Bye.